proven to be very successful in addressing agricultural problems. Adoption is very key. And you can only have adoption when you have access to technologies. So both are very fundamental, access and adoption. The issue here is that the benefit of technologies, particularly GMO, has been substantiated in many countries where it has been applied in addressing food problems. And so it is very important that we consider the benefits as very crucial in towards elevating Africa from its current problems, which we know is driven by a lack of technologies. And of course, agriculture is a key driver of economy on the continent. So access to technologies at the farm level has been highly impacted on negatively. And when that happens, one can understand that challenges is bound to occur. And some of the issues that have been found to be associated with technologies is that the capacity for research and development is highly impaired. We also have issues related to policy and regulatory frameworks. We have issues related to institutional arrangements, as well as other socioeconomic factors. So those are the key factors, basically, that has impacted negatively on the access of technologies at the farm level. AATF, as you know, is an organization that is driving technology access in the continent and is using technologies to boost prosperity of farmers on the continent where we're working. And as you all know, we have been able in partnerships with several international organizations within and outside Africa and national programs with the support of USAID to successfully develop and deploy PBR cowpea variety and for commercial use. And this is a very big feat that has been acknowledged on the continent. And the PBR cowpea that has been released is seen as a ray of hope for Africa for the GM technology. And the current trajectory recorded in that project does give a lot of hope that we might just be able to solve some of our problems related to biotechnology. So in today's forum, we have a panel of seasoned experts, highly revered experts, to explore practical approaches to promote large-scale deployment of biotechnology to enhance food security. Our panelists will be discussing four main things. The first one is the role of biotechnology in addressing challenges in crop production. The second one is to consider the factors that enable biotech adoption. Trends in biotech adoption of food crops is another part we shall be drawing from experiences and lenses from Argentina. And then finally, we shall be closing down by looking at PBR cowpea development and commercialization in Nigeria.
We believe that the future of Africa lies in its vast land. We believe the future is in the hands of those who walk the fields. For those are the hands that feed nations and ensure a better and more productive Africa. We believe in those hands, and that is why we too bring our hands in support of them. Our hands come bearing technologies and solutions that ensure their effort is not in vain, but deliver results that ensure a sustainable, prosperous, and food-secure Africa. At AATF, we are driving transformation of livelihoods in sub-Saharan Africa through innovative agricultural technologies that deliver results. We promise to deliver prosperity through technology.
Welcome back. Let me quickly introduce our esteemed panel of experts. I'll be introducing them in the order they will be speaking at this forum. The first is Dr. Margaret Carimbu, a well-known scientist. She's the director of International Service for the Acquisition of Agri-Biotech applications, often known as ISA, and she's the director for the Africa region. And she also is the pioneering chair of the Open Forum for Agricultural Biotechnology in Africa, the Kenya chapter, known as OFAB. And she's a major big collaborator with AATF. And by profession, she's a senior level environmental science management specialist. We are very delighted to welcome Margaret. The second speaker will be Mr. Godwin Lego. Mr. Lego is the Regulatory Scientific Affairs Manager for Africa at Bayer Crop Science. He also doubles as the head of regulatory science for East Africa, and he's in charge of securing and maintaining approvals to sustain license to operate in a sound regulatory environment. Mr. Lego, welcome to this webinar.
Thank you.
The third panelist is Professor Martin Lemar from Argentina. He's an adjunct professor in the School of Biotechnology at the National University of Quilmes, Argentina. He's also the former director of biotechnology in the National Ministry of Agriculture. He had also chaired the National Biosafety Commission. Under his leadership, he led the development and application of pioneer criteria that is driving or guiding regulation of genome-edited products and organisms for agricultural use that is now highly recognized worldwide. Professor Martin Lemar, you are welcome, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, my honor.
The next speaker will be Professor Mohamed Ishaku, who is the Executive Director of the Institute for Agricultural Research, a highly revered trained plant breeder and biotechnologist, well known in Nigeria and across Africa. Professor Ishaku has been the national cowpea breeder since 1997 and is the principal investigator of the PBR cowpea project in Nigeria. Professor Ishaku, welcome to this webinar. And finally, we have Dr. Isufu. Dr. Isufu is the PBR cowpea project manager at AATF. He's a plant pathologist, but he's highly versatile in science and could even pass for a breeder. He coordinates the PBR international partnership that brings together major players and investors in cowpea development across the globe and at country level. He's done a great job working with partners across the continents. Isufu oversees the implementation of the PBR cowpea project in 4 countries, namely Ghana, Nigeria, Burkina Faso, and Malawi. Welcome, Isufu. So with that introduction, may I again thank you all for taking time to be part of this important discussion. And we shall be governed by some set of rules. I call it the rules of engagement. And they include as follows: a 10-minute presentation from each of our panelists. And we request kindly that panelists stick to a 10-minute time so that we can finish on time. I will notify you once it's 3 minutes to the end of your time. We shall also have 2 poll questions. Each will take a minute. And the first one will be after the first 2 presentations. And then the second one will come at the end of the presentation. We encourage that participants get involved in the polls, and then we'll be very happy to receive their feedback. We also wish to indicate that participants do post their questions and comments on the chat box, and which will be directed to panelists for response. We have a team that will be coordinating those, doing the collation, and then we shall have them featured at the question time. So we would like to start off with the first presentation. May I now invite Dr. Margaret Carimbu to share with us the role of biotechnology in addressing challenges in crop production in Africa. Dr. Carimbu, please.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel, for that rich introduction. Good morning, good afternoon. It's really delighting to be here to share some of the progress that have been achieved by the global community. But allow me first to congratulate the federal government of Nigeria for adding a new biotech crop in the global basket in form of what we are discussing today, the cowpea resistant to the maruca pest. This is the first crop in the world to be commercialized, and we take pride with Nigerians for having delivered this, and the government of Nigeria for the support, and all the researchers and the partners that have worked on this development. So this afternoon or morning, for some of you, I'm going to share with you some of the progress that has been achieved globally with the title that we were given by AATF. Again, thank you so much, AATF, for considering us to this esteemed forum, and hopefully we'll be able to deliver. And the first question that the global community has asked for the longest period is, why do farmers need new tools? And I got examples from 2 countries in Africa. One, my own country, Kenya, where Christopher, who is a farmer, has been farming maize, that is corn, for a long time, and that is part of his family income and food for the family, has been making losses ever since the arrival of this dangerous pest, the fall armyworm. And this is what he had to say: I've made 100% loss of my crop this season due to the fall armyworm. If scientists have a solution, I need it now. So that is Christopher from Kenya. And then we have another farmer from Malawi, Lucia. And for her, she has been growing cotton for the longest period. And as you can see on the left, she testified to us that with traditional cotton, she could hardly count 7 balls per season, but 10 balls per season of 7 months. But with BT cotton in a demonstration farm, and now she's a farmer of BT cotton, she has been able to count up to 40 balls in one plant, meaning that she's no longer having to share or to compete for her produce with these dangerous pests that are so happy in Africa chewing farmers' crops. And the other question we ask ourselves is, why is it urgent? Globally, and indeed in Africa, when you look at Africa, we are saying that we have an aging farming population, the average farmer's age being 65 years, and sometimes even over. So we need to attract youth back to farming. And for the youth, what they need is efficient, smart, pleasurable tools to do the farming so that they can become part of the solution to the hunger problem instead of being the problem to the food insecurity situation in Africa. And then arrives COVID-19 in 2020. And what we have seen now is an increased level of food insecurity. And with the other outbreaks of desert locusts in the Horn of Africa, all these have exacerbated the food and nutrition insecurity for millions of people in Africa. And these crises have come on top of existing hunger caused by conflict and climate extremes. So what the world community is now really fully in agreement of is that we need to rethink how we produce our food, how we process, distribute, and consume, so that we can also reduce the food losses and ensure that farmers are also able to deliver something for the family. And it is even worse for Africa, where in 2021, the World Hunger Index estimated that 7 out of 10 hungriest countries in 2020 were from Africa. That is not very encouraging, but we are also assured that our researchers are not sleeping and making sure they deliver close to farmers. Now, in 2017, the Food and Agriculture Organization delivered a very touching speech where in this report, The Future of Food and Agriculture Trends and Challenges, they have recognized that biotechnology remains one among the many tools that is important to feed the 50% increase in food demand by 2050. And this will be addressed, or biotech addresses this through population growth, urbanization, and aging by bringing in more food to a very rapidly growing population, and then addressing the challenge of climate change, agricultural productivity and innovation, transboundary pests and diseases, nutrition, as well as food losses. Sorry. But do we have the evidence that biotechnology is delivering? The answer is yes. A summary of key global findings, which is made by a report compiled annually by a number of scientists, economists, including Graham Brooks, who is one of the renowned economists, has found that measured under 4 main factors in terms of pesticide change, global farm income, global production, and carbon emission, biotechnology tools applied in the right way and safely have contributed to a reduction in pesticide use, have contributed to increased farm income, have increased global production, and also have reduced the carbon emission by cutting down carbon dioxide, which is equal to removing close to 15 million cars off the road. What this means then is that biotechnology is indeed contributing to adding increasing food production and also a cleaner environment. When it comes to a comparison of the farm income gains by countries, the situation is not very rosy for Africa, as this chart demonstrates that most of those who are gaining from these attributes are mainly from the developed countries. We have the US, which gained 41%. Then the South Americas are catching up very fast. Brazil, Argentina, with Argentina commanding almost 12.5%, and Brazil 17.9%, in total close to 30%. In Africa, South Africa is leading in terms of getting the yield increase gain from biotech applications, with maize or corn, BT maize, reaping about 11%, and cotton 24%. That is cotton resistant to the bollworm. But now, when you look at the global area of biotech adoption and trends in 2020, the regional proportions and country areas again depicts a picture where a lot is happening in the North and South Americas, commanding close to 88% of adoption. But in Africa, we only have about 1.54%. You can see scattered out of 54 countries. It is only in 2019 that we are able to jump from 3 countries to 7 countries. Again, that is a good way to celebrate that Africa is now moving and appreciating the importance of this technology. But we do have also other countries that are coming up, and we believe that with the entry of Nigeria, things are going to move much faster. So in Africa, we are commanding just about 3 million hectares, and the number of countries with approvals rising from 3 in 2018 to about 7 now. And the number of approved crops are now 4. We have soybean, we have maize, which is corn, we have cotton, and we also have the cowpea that was approved in Nigeria. We also have a rich trait of crops that are being grown in Africa. And the most important message that I would like to say for Africa is that Africa is now concentrating on food security crops, what we call the important food crops, against those that are also commercial crops. And so it's a good mix of both commercial and food crops like banana, like cassava, that are already very much in the pipeline of completion of research to get to commercialization. And a number of other countries that have commercialized in Africa have continued to testify how the technology is improving. And this is the reason for us to go back to the theme of today about increasing productivity at the farm level. For example, Sudan, which is in Eastern Africa, by using biotech crops, they have been able to raise their yields by 2 to 3 times. And this is mainly because of protecting the losses that insects and pests chew in our crops. Then in Eswatini, a very small country in the Southern Africa region, has also been able to approve BT cotton. And again, farmers are testifying that they are getting contributions from a crop like cotton, which is a dryland crop. And so it is promising to be a big fortune for the farmers. Then going to West Africa, and I know this will be discussed at length when it comes to the BT cowpea, predictive cost-benefit application or adoption in Ghana, for example, shows that the more we delay adoption of the crops, of the technology, the more our farmers are losing. For example, the net loss for farmers in Ghana that could use nitrogen-use efficient rice stands at between 57 and 28%. That is a big loss. Any loss, even 0.1%, is big for the farmer. Then when it comes to insect-resistant cowpea, and I know there is some progress now to get to introduce the BT cowpea as the research is complete. The loss is between 29 to 39%, telling us that if you're able to capture this percentage, then we'll be able to respond to some of the challenges that we're having in our food insecurity situation in Africa. So our cautious prediction for Africa is that given the pipeline, the rich pipeline of crops and traits that are already ongoing by African researchers, we are likely to have 3 new biotech crops in the global basket over the next 5 years. Hopefully, Kenya has already completed the evaluation of cassava that is resistant to cassava brown streak disease, and we hope that that will be approved. And then Uganda completed banana, and they're very much in advanced with potato. And all these tell us that these crops would add to the global basket, and also to farmers that will be able to increase productivity and reduce the amount of hunger in these countries. So lessons from the COVID-19 pandemic, we have captured at least 3 main lessons that we have learned in terms of how best to apply this technology. One, we have already seen that there's unprecedented disruption of production and distribution of food, which is raising food insecurity further. And so for the African community, we need to facilitate transition of biotech crops in the research and development pipeline to commercial level so that farmers can be able to access these high commercial or superior crops. And then another very important lesson is the need to trust in science, application of science-based and efficient regulations, which is key if we have to shorten the time and if we have to mitigate the losses that delayed decision-making at the regulatory level is causing to African farmers. Number 3 is the importance of tapping the potential of new breeding tools like genome editing, which cuts across agriculture, health, environment, and industry. In the new approach, which is the One Health approach, where you look at the health of the environment, health of the agricultural sector, health of the livestock, and that of farmers. And there are 3 things that need to be addressed. One is the issue of misconceptions. There are some long-standing misconceptions, and I'm glad that some of the platforms like the Open Forum on Agricultural Biotechnology has been trying to address this challenge. We also need to get our products in the market so that we can have more of our local biotech sector growth. And then very importantly, we need to increase the knowledge of how plant breeding is performed, because this is also another area that is causing delays in a lot of debates instead of dialogue, so that we can get these products in the market in the hands of farmers. So finally, I would like to say that for ISA, we continue.
Margaret, can you quickly round up?
Yes, I'm actually on the last one. So I would say that with these lessons, we continue gathering the information that is being shared. I work for ISA, and we are still seeing that regulatory approvals are being done. We had Canada recently approving drought and herbicide-tolerant soybean. And so if we are able to share this knowledge and share this information like we are doing now in this platform, then we'll be able to keep ourselves abreast, and our policymakers will be able to make the decisions that will benefit our farmers. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret, for that very insightful presentation. And it captured a lot of things. It captured the benefits of biotechnology. It went further to show how it's helping to change things where it is being applied. We saw the huge gap between advanced worlds where they're applying it and areas in Africa, very abysmally low at 1.1%. But again, she also, interestingly, also showed that Africa is making progress. So it's not bad, but it just shows that the efforts being put in Africa is beginning to count. And I really like the part where she said a delay in releasing technology could be very expensive in terms of a benefit lost in not utilizing. Thank you, Margaret, for elucidating those socioeconomic benefits from your presentation. It's highly appreciated. So the next presenter will be Mr. Lemgo. We would like to know or hear from you what are the enablers that drives biotech adoption. We're very happy to hear from you speak to these issues. And again, the floor is yours. Thanks.
Thank you.
Presentation mode, please. I will let you know exactly at 3 minutes.
Yes, sure. Thank you. Am I coming through clearly?
Yeah, but I can't see from my end your presentation. It was.
Okay, so let me stop sharing and reshare again. Okay. Hopefully it works this time around.
No. When it was not in presentation mode, we could see something then. Could we? Can you go back to how when you started without being on presentation mode?
So it's not in presentation mode now.
Wow. Okay, we can see.
Actually, it shows here.
It's showing now, but okay, not in presentation mode. I hope it doesn't disappear when you move to presentation.
Let me try and put it back in presentation mode.
Okay, fantastic.
Is it okay?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Thank you. Sorry for the glitch. It worked so well during the dry run. I'm not sure why. So thank you again for this opportunity. I'm turning off my camera to save on bandwidth. So please bear with me. And indeed, Margaret did touch on some of the key areas that I wanted to talk about today, which is a science-based regulatory environment and also issues to do with public perception. But before I get into all of that, I think the biggest agricultural paradox we're trying to address today is how we feed a growing population without starving the planet. And so the question has always has often been whether to produce or to preserve. And I believe sometimes it doesn't have to be an either-or situation. It should be possible for us to intensify sustainably, right? Using technology and definitely but biotech has a role to play in this regard. Take for instance, and these are real plots from our experimental fields. back in the years, the field it takes you to produce this amount of yield, with increasing technology, you could see gradually you could produce more with less land, and the future where we are trying to get to is where you are able to even produce even more with a relatively very small pieces of land, in a really sustainable way, and definitely you need a wide range of technological tools to be able to get there, and biotech is certainly a part of those. And I know the argument has often been that biotech is often being presented as a silver bullet. But no one is saying biotech solves all the problem, but definitely it's worth being in the toolbox for an integrated approach to address many of these challenges. So my key area to talk about today is what are the key enablers for the adoption of biotech around the African continent. So what are some of the factors that facilitate biotech adoption in Africa? Now, the biggest basket so far, I think I would give to the issue of consumer or public acceptance, and I think Margaret alluded to that as well. The need for proper communication. It is very difficult to deploy a technology that produces a product that people don't really want or are skeptical of. It's virtually impossible, and that's why you'd find this is one of the biggest frontier where many civil society groups are engaged trying to discredit the technology. If you can convince a good number of people that this technology, a technology that has been tested, perhaps one of the most regulated technologies in agricultural technologies in history, is dangerous, or you can convince them that this technology is producing tomatoes with fetuses in it, or producing bananas that look like snake, or this technology is giving you products that will make you infertile. Then you find a number of consumers losing trust, being skeptical, and once you can get enough consumers to be skeptical about a technology like this, then you essentially block the adoption of such technologies. So this is one of the biggest enablers of adoption of biotech on the continent. If we can get consumers to understand and perhaps to accept the technology, and this perhaps would require their participation in the process. It would require a lot of transparency on the side of the tech providers and the various seed companies. But unless we are able to address this issue, we'll continue to have challenges with the deployment of biotech across the African continent. Because if you have more and more consumers against this, then you would find that policymakers that are also listening to consumers will begin making policies that are in line with what the consumers want. Essentially, killing of this technology. So this is a really key enabler that needs to be watched and taken care of. The other big basket, which falls within the area of policy and regulation, is political will. And I'm sure for those of you who joined this to perhaps to listen to a lot of scientific jargons, this presentation is going to be very, very down to earth, just touching, where the rubber meets the road. Biotech is supposed to be a purely scientific issue, but you would find when you come on the continent of Africa, it is not entirely scientific. There's a lot of politics in this area of science, and more so because it's becoming such a controversy when it shouldn't be. So you'd find sometimes political figures using a technology like this more as a political currency than a force for change for the country. Political parties are formed that use biotech, anti-biotech as an agenda, and when you find things like that, is really difficult to have an enabling environment to be able to deploy these technologies in those countries. Because these technologies are being seen as foreign instead of technologies that can be used by our local scientists to give farmers solutions to many of their problems. It's seen as a multinational kind of technology, all right? Or maybe multinationals are coming to take over our national sovereignty. For that reason, you find we don't really take our time to see the technology for the benefit it can give the continent, but rather as a political capital to be able to drum up the base.
3 minutes.
So you find in
3 minutes.
Okay. Now, the other more important area has to do with science-based legal policy framework. This technology is often, when it first landed on African shore, I mean, our leaders saw this as how do we prevent this technology from taking shape, right? So they adopted a very precautionary approach. And so we have policies that are not science-based. To be able to adopt this technology effectively, we need risk-proportionate science-based policies that provide process clarity as well as confidential business information protection, fault-based liability systems for this technology to be able to deploy. Otherwise, it's very difficult. Then we have predictable decision-making processes. You find in some countries, you don't even know how the process would evolve. So you find even interagency kind of conflicts. Everybody wants to be the ones regulating this technology, and you don't really have a predictable system for decision-making. Others just purely lack the capacity. These are all things that wouldn't enable the technology. For the technology to be able to be deployed on the continent, we need systems that have technical capacity, legal authority, predictability, and even practicality in the decision-making process. Stewardship is also a key enabler. As you can see, this technology is stewarded from the onset all the way to the end. And so if there isn't enough stewardship capacity in a country, it becomes very difficult to deploy this technology in those countries. Then you'd find R&D innovation. This is a very busy slide. I wouldn't go into all of this. Where I want you to pay attention is how long it takes and how much it costs to bring some of these innovations to the market. And so you'd find private sector is trying to converge many of these technologies and bring integrated solutions to the farmer. But then the only way, or maybe one of the ways Africa can leapfrog many of these developed countries, is to be able to go into public-private partnerships like what AATF is doing right now, seek other opportunities for technology transfer, but also build local capacities at the various NAS to be able to deploy some of these technologies. So such R&D capability would also be a key enabler to adopting this technology. So if in concluding, at the center of all of this is, in my opinion, is political will and public acceptance. That will be the core of this. But again, we need risk-proportionate, science-based, and well-capacitated policy and decision-making environment for this technology to thrive. We need a strong in-country stewardship support for durability of this technology. Investment in R&D is also key to be able to enable the deployment of this technology in country. And also the ability of systems to adapt and also simplify processes, harmonize processes in country would also be a key enabler for Africa to leapfrog other developed continents and deploy this technology. I'll stop here. Thank you very much. Happy to take questions.
Yeah, thank you, Godwin Lengo. Very, very interesting presentation. Yeah, we've always heard about political issues around political will, the regulatory frameworks, but you brought in a new dimension, and that is your biotech products should be driven more by those who are going to use them, the farmers and consumers. I find that very interesting. And then, of course, the AATF, you know, is driving stewardship, and I was very happy to hear you mention stewardship because beneficiaries of biotech must find value for that investment to justify using them. Thank you very much for the excellent presentation. Right now, we'll just take 1 minute to respond to a poll. We need to catch up quickly so that we don't lose time. Thank you very much. So thank you again for responding to that poll. We need to quickly move on to Professor Martin Lemar. Professor Lemar, we are deeply humbled to have you in today's program. Argentina is where you come from, is one of the biggest players in biotech, and we've seen that in the presentation today already. Where South America is one of the biggest adopters. We would like you to share your lessons and experiences on biotech adoption in Argentina. Welcome, Lemar.
Thank you, Dr. Okaubenin. On the contrary, it's a pleasure and an honor for me to be invited to your seminar. So I'm very grateful to AATF for the opportunity to contribute. Now, please allow me to share the screen. Here. So, first of all, let me put you in context regarding the situation in Argentina, as it has been said already, and you can see here on the right, Argentina is the third country in order of how many hectares we grow of genetically modified crops in the world. It has been like that for many years. Argentina has always maintained this third position. And also here on the left, you can see from the very onset of biotech crop approvals in Argentina in the year 1996, the farmers have been using the biotech seeds in increasing proportion. So very quickly, the proportion of farmers that were using biotech seed went from 0 to 100% or almost 100%, and that stays true up to date. So the adoption was very quick, and also it was sustained over time. Now a little bit about our economy. Here on the right, you can see the distribution of the income from exportations, any kind of exportations sent from Argentina to other countries. So in here you can see that more than half of the money that enters the country from exporting goods is from exporting foodstuffs. And within that, almost a quarter is based on commodities, which in turn is mostly soybean. And then we have industrialized foodstuff or more complex foodstuff. Some of them do not have a content of GM crops, but some others do. Many of those industrialized foodstuff have some ingredient made of soybean or maize, and therefore, very grossly speaking, perhaps a quarter of our income from economy, from exports, it relies on a product that is genetically modified. Then on the right, you can see the result of a study that tried to make an estimate of the amount of money that was generated by the adoption of the technology alone. So this is not the cultivation of GM soybean, crop, and cotton, but just the difference that is can be attributed to the use of the technology. So the technology alone supposedly contributed with $127 billion during the first 20 years of use. So it's a lot of money just thanks to the technology. And this money was distributed more or less in the way you can see on the bottom of the left, on the right of the right side. So this is the distribution for soybean. Soybean is the highest contributor to this economic boom. And in here you can see that mostly growers capture this income, this extra income, and then the government, the state, through taxes, and of course that was distributed to the rest of the society. And there was a significant part of that income also going to the technology providers. This is the seed and providers and providers of other technical inputs. So in here you can see that for Argentina,
Professor Lemar, if I may comment, your slides,
yeah,
it appears they're not moving. Your slides, are they moving?
Sorry.
I don't think they are moving. Yeah.
You're not seeing that?
Yeah, they're moving now. Can you wait?
Okay.
Can you continue?
Sorry.
Move on? Yeah. Yeah. It was. Yeah, we saw this.
Sorry. So here once again, this is the adoption rate that I was mentioning from 0 to 100 very quickly. And in here you can see the pie charts on the left, the one that shows that about a quarter of our export income is connected to genetically modified crops. And on the right, the amount of money that was generated by the adoption of this technology, the genetic modified crops, and how that extra income was distributed between the growers and the government and the technology providers. Now, in here, we have a brief timeline of our regulatory achievements in genetically modified crops. And here it's important regarding the spirit and the content of this webinar. It's important to highlight that for the Argentine case, the country didn't need to promote or the government didn't promote the GM crops. The only thing that the government did was to adequate them, to regulate them in an adequate manner, and then the farmers decided if the technology was good for them and which technology, because up to date we have more than 60 genetically modified crops approved in Argentina, and not necessarily all of them are in use. The farmers can try the different GM crops and decide which ones are better for their situation. So in our country, we began with the regulation of GM crops in 1991, so very early in our continent and in the world. 5 years later, we had the first commercial approval of a GM crop. But also, in some years afterwards, we have the first field trial of a genetically modified animal that was a national development. I mean, a development of our own scientists and biotech companies. So the fact that we had a functional regulatory framework not only allowed to incorporate technologies that were developed overseas, but also it fostered that Argentine biotech companies and Argentine researchers teamed up to develop interesting products, including not only crops, but also animals. And in this case, this animal produces biopharmaceuticals. Well, making a big jump ahead, In 2014, our regulatory commission was recognized by the United Nations Organization for Food and Agriculture as a reference center for biosafety. So our regulatory framework is recognized worldwide as being very solid and trustable. Then in 2015, so it took some years, but finally there was the first commercial approval of a GM crop that was developed by Argentine scientists and Argentine biotech companies. This is perhaps the only time where I have seen that the Argentine politicians or the government made a little bit of promotion. They appear in television, like in here, our Secretary of Agriculture, explaining the people that now we have a biotech potato that was developed by Argentinian scientists, and also a soybean that is resistant to drought, the first drought-resistant soybean in the world, and a very successful trade. So only on this occasion, and mostly because it was a national development, then politicians made a little bit of advertisement, let's say, when they approved the product. But for the rest of the 60 products, our government didn't need to advertise them. It was just the government only had to regulate them in an adequate manner. So now, nowadays we have, as I said, 60 approved events, including 60 approved different GMOs, including recombinant vaccines for veterinary use. And also we have genome-edited products. In Argentina, the regulation of GMOs then is called a state policy, because it's something that doesn't change much from one government to the other. All the governments appreciate the past experience that we have on regulating and allowing the farmers to adopt these technologies. So in here you can see in blue how many GM crops or GM vaccines for veterinary use were approved over time. Since the data is quite noisy, this blue line is an average, and this line goes through the average approvals for each Argentinian president. So every time the blue line breaks, is because we have a change in presidency, but you can see that all the slopes are positive. So every president has been approving GM crops and more than the one before. So that's why this is called a state policy. And also in very recent years, you can see in red the adoption rate, not the adoption rate, the rate of decisions regarding genome-edited products, or what is also called new breeding techniques, which are not GMOs, but is also under the biotech regulation. And finally, I'm about to finish now. Many times I get the question of how does the Argentine government generate such levels of acceptance or in the Argentine public. And as I said before, mostly the role of the government here is to have a solid regulation, not to make an advertisement of the product. And basically, I think that the trust that the Argentinians have on their food in general is a trust on a government that not only on GMOs, in many other aspects, is doing its work properly in avoiding food scares. So for these many reasons that are on the screen, all of them, I think, contribute to what is called in sociology an implicit trust. So it's not a matter of acceptance in the way of making a survey. If you stop people on the street and make a survey, they will tell that they don't want many things that they actually use in their daily life. So, but if you measure it in terms of implicit trust or lack of rejection, because many foods in the Argentine supermarket contain GMOs. So in Argentina, the answer to that is not the people is not against GMOs, and the reason for this is not the government making a lot of advertisement. is because of the government making a proper regulatory job, having an important socioeconomic contribution, not having food scarce, and also having national developments in biotechnology. All of these combine and makes people not being predisposed against the technology. So with this, I finish, and thank you so much again for the opportunity to be present.
Okay, I was on mute. Thank you, Professor Martin Lemar, for the very interesting presentation, capturing lessons and experiences in Argentina, and quite interesting to really see in one of your slides where you were mentioning that government do not need to promote, just adequately regulated. So I see that there's a link and a bit of nexus and connection when things are well regulated, and then people begin to have some confidence in the technology. And I think that's something we should take note. And then the fact that over the years, the presidents have really supported the technology. I think those are some few things we need to learn in Africa. And of course, the adoption levels are very impressive, the economic impact, and it's linked to a number of good things. I think that's something we need to continue to connect together in Africa regarding how those technology can really bring the positive changes to the continent. Thank you, Professor Lemar, for that. I hope it's something we can adopt. So on that basis, before I move to the next speaker, I just want to say here that we need to remind the audience that they should please post their questions. Please kindly do so, and any comments you may have on the chat box, so that our panelists can react to those questions and comments. On that note, may I kindly invite Dr. Isufu to highlight the PBR commercialization process and the projected impacts in West Africa as a region. Dr. Isufu, please, you have the floor. Thanks.
I'm going to put the document on.
Kindly go ahead.
Yeah, let me see. Dropbox. No, it is not in Dropbox. I put it in my. I put them in my hard disk. Why is it not coming? I'm coming, Emmanuel. I am
Yeah, no problem.
What is this sharing out?
I
will open.
Screen? Yeah. So, share screen. Yeah.
I put share screen, but
it's not on.
Yeah, on. Okay. So thank you very much. I look through my name is Isufu Abdurrahman. I am based actually in Nigeria. So in Abuja, in Nigeria. So this is where PBR Cowpea is located. Is managed from. So I went through the four questions. The four questions we asked. So I will go first. Explain why do we need the PBR Cowpea. If you look at the first slides, I will put the first slides. It is the story of. It is the question of. It describes exactly what is the food security. So I had 2 or 3 regions of the world, so we can as a reference point for us. I hope my voice is enough loud so you can hear me. You see what food security is really, food insecurity now, I should say, is really on the rise in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa, especially the moderate case. So, and if you look at the incidents, the consequences of this food insecurity on health and our our population. I take here from the FAO data. I look at the data on anemia among women in age of procreation. See, sub-Saharan Africa, as you see here, is really is not in good shape. More than 40% of our young mothers are experiencing anemia. So that's no good sign. And you know, when mothers are affected, children are automatically also affected, because people who take care of children are mostly the mother. So this problem can be solved. We think that if you can have a good supply of cowpea. Sub-Saharan Africa, God had given us two leguminous crops, indigenous in Sub-Saharan Africa. One is cowpea and the other is Bambara groundnut, Wanzu subterranea. They are both nutritious, but cowpea is the crop where research really we have done, some research has been done on the cowpea. The other one has been neglected and still very few research has attempts. There are few attempts to do even research on the second one. So this one will focus on cowpea and how cowpea will be addressed this problem. So we know that cowpea is very nutritious protein crop, very nutritious one. It got 20 to 32 percent of protein, and it got a high level of carbohydrates. Also very rich in energy. And on top of all this, cowpea is very good source of many minerals, calcium, phosphorus, and also iron and zinc, which is very important for the human resistance against disease, to boost the immune system. Cowpea also contains a lot of fibers and some vitamins, especially vitamin B groups. So if we can improve the cowpea production in the continent, we can help, certainly agriculture will help improve our nutrition. It can help improve the nutrition of the poor. So the challenge is, cowpea is, this is why cowpea is very popular in Nigeria. It is called the meat of the poor, very popular. And the Nigerians are the largest consumer of cowpea on the continent, with about 18 kilograms per capita per person per year. That's a huge quantity. And about 1/4 of the cowpea consumed in Nigeria came from neighboring countries, especially this country, Niger Republic. I show on the graph here. You see, Niger had almost 1,000 kilometers border with Nigeria. For all these borders, cowpea will penetrate. Cowpea is being shipped to Nigeria. So it is a big market for Nigeria. Some of the cowpea produced in Niger goes all the way to Ghana, through Burkina Faso and Togo. So, but the cowpea crop is cowpea, the yields are very low. In general, yields are around 200, 300, 400 kilograms. Where you get a little bit improvement, you get 400. Whereas the potential is around more than 2 tons per hectare. So we got a lot of problems hampering cowpea production. The insects, cowpea is very well known. These two insects, maruca and burkid weevils, are the two most devastating insect pests on cowpea. Maruca attacks in the field, the burkid wait until it's storage, and in 2 months it can destroy the whole harvest. And a few years back, people of my generation, when we are growing up, our mothers used to use DDT to dust the cowpea. So we used to eat a lot of cowpea with smelling DDT. So I am sure we can find it even in our bloods. So as you can see, some of these constraints can be solved by just agricultural management practices, low soil fertility, for example. All those conventional breeding will be able. We know we found a resistance against Striga or Electra. So that can be managed. But against the insect group, the borers, because maruca is a borer, in every crop, we know that there is very little the level of resistance against borers are usually low. Thanks for the advancements in genetic engineering, the BT technology, the birth of BT technology. This group of insects are brought under control now, can be efficiently managed. So in 1990, in the mid-90s, since 1987, the African scientists were screening all the cowpea with Gen Plus. Obviously, they couldn't find any resistance because you cannot find what doesn't exist. This is when it was finally decided in mid-90s, 1996, by Cowpea genetic improvements to see if we can use the new BT technology in Cowpea to solve the Maruca problems, because Maruca was designated by the Network for Genetic Improvement of Cowpea in Africa, designated Maruca as the essential insect to focus on. If Maruca is under control, the other insect pests attacking cowpea in the field can be easily managed, but will help with the management of the other insects. So against Maruca, I think 1 year we did a survey, me and one of my colleagues, Francis Onyekachi. We look at farmers in Ghana. When we interview, we find farmers spraying almost, some of them spray twice a week in attempt to bring down the Maruca, to control Maruca. They are spraying insecticide twice a week because sometimes when they spray, it rains. So easily they can spray 10 times during cropping season. Here in Nigeria, it is around 6 times, about 6. The average is 6 times sprayed, trying to bring Maruca under control. So when the network decided to go on biotechnology, to use biotechnology, then they turned towards USAID and asked if USAID is willing to finance such a project. USAID said we will see, but a proposal has to be put forward first. So the proposal was written and the AATF was designated to coordinate the whole activities. I think the first transformation was carried out in ITA, but that was not successful. Time was lost. Vital time was lost for 3 or 4 years were lost. ITA couldn't transform it. This is where CSRO was called upon, the lab of T.G. Higgins, who successfully transformed PBR cowpea with BT gene. So, but what was very, very, very interesting thing for PBR cowpea, development of PBR cowpea in those years. So I am just giving you here the story of the research because Professor Ishaku was not able to come. So, and when the events are developed in CSRO, the efficacy trials are conducted in Nigeria or in West Africa, in the other 2 countries or West Africa. And Malawi later joins us. So we got all the efficacy trials and the regulatory trials conducted in Africa. So we were able to get the environmental release in January 2029, and also the farmers release, the release to farmers in December 2019, the same year. So last year we were able to conduct the demonstration trials in many areas. As you can see these graphs, PBR cowpea, the new name is SMP20. We don't in Nigeria because the National Release Variety Committee decided that the T should be added at the end to show that it is transformed, cowpea transformed cowpea. So these are the yield data recorded in farmers' fields. And you see the SMP20, which is PBR cowpea, almost everywhere out yielding the conventional variety, the local cases. And sometimes the yield advantage is very obvious. You record 2 or 3-fold yield increase. We also look at the effect of insecticide reduction. So PBR cowpea, we need only no more than 2 spray of insecticide. And we calculated the benefits will be around more than $300 per hectare. Farmers have never seen something like this on cowpea before. Never. And most of the farmers were even losers when they grow PBR cowpea. So actually the seed demands are very high. Seed demands are very high, and we are struggling to meet this demand. So the outcome for all these trials is we are sure that PBR cowpea increase farmers' income. It also increase the supply and maybe the consumption of cowpea in Nigeria, and it will result in very much improved health for the population, especially the rural women and also the urban dwellers, because there are a lot of low-income people in urban dwellers who rely on PBR cowpea for the nitrogen supply, dietary intake of nitrogen. During the development of PBR cowpea, we encountered a lot of problems. The first problem was really structural because there was no biosafety legislation in the countries. In Nigeria, in Ghana, only Burkina had at that time was able to get biosafety legislation. But in Burkina, it came, what many people don't know, it was the cotton growers are the one who went and saw the president and told him clearly, if they don't do anything to improve cotton production, they will abandon cotton. And the government has its backs on the wall. The government called Monsanto. So this is how Burkina took the lead. It is really a fast move. Yeah.
You have 3 minutes more, and it's like it's frozen.
I have just 2 slides. So the first problem we have was the lack of biosafety. The efficacy trials were conducted in Puerto Rico, and as you see, that was too expensive. So then AATF and its partners were able to organize OFAB, and we had the partnership with ABNI, the African Biotechnology Network, and also the PBS to make a lot of advocacy in Nigeria. This is how the biosafety legislation came in the country. So these are some of the lessons. We need a lot of partners. Scientists alone cannot do it. To do the advocacy and the communication to bring the government to adopt the legislations. The second lesson is that the team members were not, our research team members were not familiar with biosafety regulatory affairs and biosafety compliance, and especially no knowledge of stewardship. We have to train them in this course. A lot of trainings have been going on and is still going on. The third problem was really the low capacity in biotechnology and poor infrastructure. So the project had to spend a lot of money buying equipment, training people how to use this equipment and build the infrastructure for them. The fourth lesson is how to counter the anti-GMOs propaganda and the lawsuits. I think we learned a lot of things. We were able to create a good communication with partners like OFAB, and we use effectively the media, and we train scientists to communicate with the help of Cornell Alliance and OFAB, and we are even able to train lawyers because we had some lawsuits and we won all our lawsuits because we are able to train our lawyers to handle the documents of the cases. So the global lesson, I really think what should be important is what we don't have much government support. I hope the PBR cowpea the result will be used by our scientists to make government to give more support to agricultural research and development. And now the scientists have to know that they cannot work in isolation anymore. They have to explain to the society what they are doing to generate more support. The second question was Nigeria. The PBR cowpea will not have much impact on ECOWAS trading. It's not have. I think the major impact will be, it will force other countries to adopt biosafety legislation, especially the French-speaking one. Already Togo had authorized GMO food commercialization. A few years ago, they banned any GM food and any GM research in their countries. So they are feeling the heat and the necessity to move about. I hope Nigeria will use the lessons at NEPAD or ECOWAS to bring more countries to adopt biotechnology or to promote biotechnology. But as I said it, the Nigerian research institutions are in very bad shape. I hope our result will push the government to improve the situation of the research institution. You cannot have agricultural development without effective agricultural research. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Isufu, for that detailed history of the technology, how it started, and, you know, for filling the gaps. And you've also elucidated very clearly the importance of Cowpea and, you know, and how it can be used. And again, the last part that highlighted some of the challenges and what has to be done to be able to move Africa forward. Thank you very much. And I'm very confident that PBR will help to combat hunger and food insecurity and improve economic development based on your presentation. So let's take 1 minute to respond to the final poll and trying to see whether we can finish on time. Thank you very much. So let's quickly do that.
I want to, no, the first question, I didn't have my glasses on, so.
So we will now move on to the next section. Don't worry, I will call you and we shall take some few questions now that we run with the poll. Ladies and gentlemen, let us take, we want to take some questions already posted. And we would again like to thank our panelists for their presentation. It has come out really very informative. And we are mindful of the time, but we'll try and take some few questions. But if you have some questions, you can always post them on the chat box, and somehow we shall be able to respond, if not immediately, but at some point. Question to Dr. Carimbu. The question reads as follows: the farming community in Africa is mainly aged, with limited participation of the youth and unclear succession plans. Please share with us your insights on how governments and other stakeholders can enhance youth inclusion in the context of agricultural biotechnology.
Thank you. Can I go ahead?
Yes, please.
Yeah, that is very true. I think our youth have been brought up, of course, in both rural and urban areas, but those youth in the rural areas have seen their parents struggle like we did with the old methods. And so farming has for the longest period been associated with poverty. But I think one of the ways in which the narrative can change is if the young people are able to access better tools and better ways of farming, so that they get that misperception that farming is for the poor. And of course, we cannot do that if we continue doing business as usual, where you have graduates and you expect them to take the tools that we used. Maybe we didn't even use, our grandmothers and our forefathers used, which actually belong to the museum. So we need to get out of this this mindset that agriculture is a poverty kind of driven activity, to get our farmers really farm as a business. So if young people are able to really get these tools and be able to make money, because everybody wants to make some money at the end of it, then they should be able to come very quickly and adopt this technology. So two things. One is just to make sure that our policies are facilitating access to new tools. Secondly, is that we are adding value to what we are producing. So because the youth don't necessarily have to be in the farm. They can also add value to what we are growing, and then that way they'll appreciate that the farming can actually be smart, can be pleasurable and money-making.
Thank you, Dr. Carimbu. Thank you. I agree with you. I agree with you. So the second question we go to Professor Lemar. Or let me follow the same order. To Godwin Lemgo. Lemgo, it has been several years since South Africa adopted GM crops. What lessons can Africa learn from their experiences? The question is, what lessons can Africa learn from their experiences? The question is, what did South Africa do right? What do you think they did right that Africa can learn from?
Thank you, Dr. Manuel. So I think, in my opinion, so South Africa was able to create an enabling environment for this technology very early on, when many of the other African countries were still very hesitant to the technology, in my opinion. So I wouldn't say they have a perfect regulatory system, but they had a regulatory system that was functioning, and that was able to make decision on some of these technologies. And I want to believe that the trust that the people had in their regulatory system may have played a bigger role in them being able to roll out some of these technologies very early on. But South Africa is definitely not out of the wood. We do have a lot of civil society activism in South Africa, advocating against this technology. Day in, day out, we have activists in court challenging regulatory approvals, or maybe grassroots movements that are still challenging these technologies. So it's similar to what other countries are facing, just that they had an enabling environment very early on to be able to adopt this technology, and people were very quickly able to familiarize themselves with this technology at an early stage. That's my opinion. Perhaps colleague panelists can also chime in. But Margaret also has a lot of experience in South Africa, so I'm looking at you, Margaret.
If I'm allowed by the moderator.
Okay, Carimbu, yeah, you can just quickly, if you have to.
I think, in addition to what Emmanuel has said, I think also the fact that South Africa adopted a food and feed approach, where a lot of the crops, what they grew, soybean, maize, was going to the feed sector. This really drove the appeal for the technology, because they were able to see what the technology could also do in the livestock sector. Secondly is the export. South Africa was also protecting its export and wanted to be competitive. And so this, I believe, could also be another factor that made the technology adoption quite quick and fast.
Okay, thank you very much for that additional information. So to Professor Lemar, the question reads as follows. It said they appreciate this, we appreciate the smarter way of measuring acceptance by lack of rejection. In your views, they would like to know, the questioner would like to know, how should developers of biotech react to publications from surveys that superficially report dislike for biotech products? Okay, just how will you advise developers to react to publications from surveys that suggest that there's dislike for biotech products?
Well, perhaps if the current situation is actually that farmers are hesitant because of that kind of surveys, maybe they can be also exposed to experiences in other countries like Argentina, Brazil, even the US, where people is not rejecting these foodstuffs. They are in the food chain and they are being consumed. So for instance, sometimes here in Argentina, we receive visits from African farmers and African policymakers, and we show them not only the regulatory framework, but we also take them to the field, and we also take them to the supermarket so they can see that people is buying many foodstuffs having GM content, and there is no rejection. Also in Argentina or in Brazil or in other countries, there have been surveys. And once again, if you stop somebody on the street and you ask, would you eat genetically modified food, they will say, I rather not. But also here in Argentina, they make the experiment of asking, would you eat food with genes? And they say, no, I wouldn't eat food with any gene. So people didn't understand that food has DNA. There is a gap between what you can get on a survey in the street and how actually people behaves in a supermarket, especially in a country where it's not an imported food. It's a food grown locally, so within Argentina. So answering your questions, perhaps the farmer should be exposed to other sources of information on how the public reacts to this, like the actual situation in countries like Argentina, Brazil, Canada, South Africa.
Yeah, thanks, Lemgo. Yeah, that's a very useful advice and approach towards countering such unbalanced information. I think, yeah, that should do it. In addition, of course, to what Lemgo had said, that biotech products may not be bad, but because you have not tailored it to meet their needs as well, that could also be a problem. So, but you are absolutely right in countering such negative response from as we can find sometimes in publications. To Dr. Isufu, the question is that they want to know what has been the greatest success factors towards the release of PBR Cowpea. What can other countries learn from Nigerian experience? Very fantastic question. Actually, the greatest success factors and lessons from Nigerian experience.
I think the success factors are the following. First, really our product is good. It was a farmer's preferred varieties, very popular one, which has been transformed. And the environment, the gene is just, the pest we want to control is a major pest. So when you get a resistance against a major pest in the endemic areas, you know the success is guaranteed. That's the second. The second case, I think, for the success was the way AATF coordinated the whole activities. Through and through, we get really good scientists everywhere working on it, from Australia, US Danforth Center, and the way AATF was able to coordinate and assure that everybody is doing his or her work on timely manner to deliver products. But one of the key factors, technology is something, but the social environment and others is a key driver for the success. How we counter the opposition to this technology was very important, because the advocacy didn't sleep. The advocacy people didn't sleep. And OFAP has been very instrumental in this. And we know where the politicians are. And a key figure to convince the politician is that most of their advisors were taken to US or Australia or South Africa to see the crop in the field and discuss with growers. So when they came back, changed people. So the resistance from the politician was broken down. From that day on, the day the Minister of Science and Technology and the Minister of Agriculture openly supported biotechnology, and we were happy with what we saw, we know that we will get our product out. So these are really, because most of the scientists in Nigeria, you know, in our countries, most of our scientists have outmoded knowledge from biotechnology. So many scientists were not coming out. The minority coming out was very dedicated and highly vocal. So we were able to convince a majority of. We had also the Farmers Association. We make the Farmers, Nigerian Farmers Association and Nigerian Cowpea Growers Association, the head, to visit US and Australia. That was very important. They became highly vocal supporter. So it's like what Professor Lemar was saying. You need to make people have experience with other countries. So I think these are the kind of lessons I think for other countries can learn from Nigeria, where the resistance is active. Already we apply it in Ghana. We won a court cases. The court case was just dismissed last week. So we won a very clear court cases in Ghana, and our dossier is on table there. And we are applying the same lessons we learned in Nigeria, in Ghana. And the next country we will move to will be Burkina Faso. So, and we are doing the same advocacy, the same communication effect on TV to convince farmers, to convince decision makers, but our product is very safe and it is working very well. So it's almost the same crop. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Issoufou. So we just want to wind up quickly. We are already 3 minutes above time, and we'll do that shortly now. So as we wind up, ladies and gentlemen, I want to kindly extend 1 minute to each of our panelists to give their final remarks. Margaret, Godwin, Martin, and Issoufou in that order. 1 minute. Margaret,
yeah,
please.
thank you. Thank you very much. This has been very enriching and learning from the experiences of those who have been before us, like Argentina. I think 3 things. One is importance of government support. And like in Argentina, I think the government in Africa support is so key for us. Secondly is the growth of the biotech sector locally. And I saw a question from a diaspora scientist asking what they can do. I think this would be one of the areas growing in the biotech companies in Africa so that we can produce our own products. And thirdly, of course, continuous communication and engagement with stakeholders. Thank you.
All right. Godwin?
Thank you. Also, from my side, the key to adopting any technology in Africa is an enabling policy environment. Yes, we need political will, we need consumer knowledge and acceptance, but we need workable regulatory framework to be able to adopt and deploy technologies in Africa. So that is going to be very important if Africa is supposed to deliver any value out of this technology. The last from my side, this technology has been in existence for a number of years now. There's a lot of lessons that have been learned in other developed economies like Argentina and the South Americas and North Americas. And in Africa, we don't need to repeat all of this. What we need is to be able to leapfrog what others have done and learn from their mistakes and make sure we correct their mistakes. So we should find a way of harmonizing our processes or simplifying our processes such that if data exists already, because I was listening to Dr. Issoufou, you have to do the same trials in Ghana, do the same trials in Burkina Faso. These are neighboring countries. You go to Nigeria, you do the same trials. Why can't we just harmonize and make sure, okay, if I'm done the trials in Nigeria, I can use the data to support in other African countries? Common sense approach. This is how we can leapfrog the continent. Technology that has.
All right. Lemgo is dropped there. So let's go to Professor Martin Lemar.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Maybe just to finish what Lemgo was saying, he was talking about data transportability, and that's something that is very important. Here in my region, our countries took many years to learn about that, but now that we make that data transportability between Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay, Uruguay, I mean, in countries in our region, accept the field trials made in the neighbor country as part of the dossier, and that's very helpful to advance the approvals, and also it's very efficient in terms of money and time. I was about to say on me that Africa, the world in general, and Africa in particular, is having a great opportunity now with GM crops, because now there are technologies that work pretty well on pest protection, drought tolerance, and also nutritional enhancement. So that's a triad of traits that may be very reality transforming for Africa and also for Latin America, and therefore the continent shouldn't miss the opportunity now of catching up. And for that, of course, having a regulatory system that works is essential. All the other is also important, but comes second.
Okay, thanks. Finally, Isufu, just 1 minute. Isufu, you are mute.
Emmanuel, thank you, Emmanuel, and thank you for a predecessor who talked. So I will add on top of them, just when I see with any politicians, is what to get more support for our research and development. We should look at the African continent. It is right in the middle. We got almost all the climate change and others are impacting Africa more than any other continent in the world. So we need our scientists. We are able scientists who can do the work, but we need more support. We got very good scientists who can do the work. That's not the problem. The challenge is how to get more funding for research and development, especially in the area of biotechnology, to tackle the problem of climate change on our continent. Yeah.
Okay. On that note, I would like to, all have spoken in the same direction. We've seen slides that show what we are losing by not adopting innovative technologies quickly, and we've seen what we can gain if we adopt it quickly. Argentina has been a very good example here. You saw those figures, and with Margaret, all of them showed those figures, and Godwin also showed that the role regulatory plays in ensuring that all this happens to improve adoption. So we don't want to waste any time any further. Thanks. I would like to thank, as I want to give the vote of thanks, I would like to especially express our sincere gratitude and thanks to the panelists for the excellent presentation today, and also for the comments. Again, time is never friendly, but I think the message has been conveyed. We are really very grateful for their participation. We also want to thank those who have that made our time to be here to join us in this forum. We really appreciate your participation, and we look forward to hosting you again. And AATF is a technology-driven organization for the benefit of farmers and those who are in the value chain. So we really count on your participation to enrich that process. And then finally, I would like to thank all those who have been behind with the organization, and also AATF staff whom we don't also participate in, and also our partners who have made the PBR Cowpea project a success. Without them, we wouldn't be talking about PBR today. On that note, I would like to say thank you all and bye for now. Have a nice day. Sincerely, bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.